Hey, welcome to Q&A, where you ask your questions on faith and life, and I do my best to give a biblical perspective. Hey, let me just say right up front, we have what may be for some a controversial question, and so as I get into it, all I'm asking is that whatever your views are, if you want to express them, I'd love to hear them, but let's be mindful of other opinions, and let's not assume that each of us has the last say. So now you're probably wondering what the question is, so let's jump in. What are your views on the Destiny Church protests at the Rainbow Reading? Should churches protest like that? There's two questions really there. Should a church protest, and what are my views on a particular protest? Let me deal with that one first. If you're not familiar, if you perhaps listen to this and you're not outside New Zealand, we have a significant church here in New Zealand who protested in a public library, an event that was being held by a group of drag kings, I think it was, a drag king reading some books as part of what was perceived as part of the agenda to normalise the trans agenda, the LGBTQ agenda, and this church protested it. It was in a public building. What are my thoughts on that? Well, you can't ignore it, really, can I? Okay, well, I may not have done things the way they did them. That says more about me than it does about them. Let me explain. I think that they absolutely had the right to protest. I don't have a problem with that in any shape or form. We all have the rights to protest within the bounds of the law. We all feel very passionately about particular issues, and when we feel unheard or whatever, we feel that we have to protest to get our point across, and the law gives us the right to do that. And certainly when it comes to the Destiny protest there, from what I saw in the media, I didn't see them going beyond anything else or any boundaries that other protests have pushed against, that we've seen in the media. I think the media was very biased in the way they presented things, in my personal viewpoint. Were they lawful in their protest? I don't know. I don't have the full details. I wasn't there. But here's the questions that I'm asking. Did they throw stuff and hurl abuse at people, like, for example, those who opposed the feminist Posey Parker? The answer is no. No, they didn't. They didn't throw things. They didn't act illegally. They didn't act abusively towards others. Did they threaten people's lives? Like, for example, John Minto's advocating with his, call to rout out any Israeli soldiers, but any Jews, and to get them to leave the country and abuse them and threaten them. He's calling he's almost calling for genocide. The answer is no. Did they vandalize property? The answer is no. So what are my thoughts? I think that, like many in society, they felt that their voice was not being heard, that they were being marginalized, that they were being silenced, and they felt pushed to the point where they felt they had to take action in order to draw attention to a viewpoint, whether it's popular or otherwise, is a valid viewpoint that they felt they wanted to be heard. Do I back them up in this? Absolutely, I back them up. Would I do it that way? Well, we all draw the boundaries around certain issues in different ways. And, for me, for example, I'm very passionate about Voice for Life. I march for Voice for Life. Do I expect everyone else to do that? No. But it's something that I'm passionate about. I would protest on behalf of them. I would protest for the rights of the unborn. And so they're protesting over a particular issue. Do I back them? Absolutely. Because, as I say, we have the right in this country to protest within the bounds of the law. I think what concerns me is that increasingly protests or increasingly people are demonized if you disagree with them. And that demonization, if I could describe it that way, as much as I try and avoid labels, tends to come from the hard left. Going back to that Posey Parker protest, for example, a couple of years ago, she was she was standing up for women's rights. She was a feminist, an ardent feminist, and she was defending women's rights. And the trans activist said, from memory, something along the lines, people like her shouldn't be allowed to come to New Zealand and spread hateful views. There was nothing hateful about her views. She was drawing a line between in defense of feminist rights that she felt were being eroded by the rights of trans. She wasn't calling into question trans rights. She was drawing a line between them and feminist rights. And we see that happening increasingly, where if you disagree with a particular group, you're demonized and made to feel like you're the problem. The tactic is to intimidate, to silence opposition. And that concerns me. And I think that's what we've seen particularly from the media in relation to what happened with the Destiny protest. I think that they were exercising a legal right and they're being portrayed in a way that is demonizing them. And I don't think that's helpful. I think that it reflects the deep division that we have in our society. So that's my view. Should churches protest? Well, Paul says in Romans that we should submit to all lawful things that a government enacts, where it's not to do with salvation. So long as we stay within the bounds of the law, then if churches feel passionately about a particular topic, about something, then I think they ought to. I think just as any group in society has the right to stand up for what they're passionate about, the church does. Should we do it as regularly as other groups do? Oh, that's a question that we need to wrestle with. Personally, I do think that there comes a point where if we don't stand up for certain things, that we actually we can end up losing the ability to stand up for anything at all. So I think we should be careful about what we protest and how we protest and why, but I think it should remain on the table so that we don't lose it. So yeah, those are my views. I'd love to hear your views. Let's be respectful if you want to share them, but that's how I see it. But hey, as always, if you've got questions on faith and life, feel free to jump over to slido.com, use the hashtag askhamish. Love to hear from you. But that's it for now. Until next time, God bless.